Yeah, great.
Whoa, this ain't going.
Down the side, and
but I appreciate everybody on the chat tonight for your comments. We'd like to welcome everybody here tonight to the Bee Connection. Hopefully, your bees are doing great, and it's been a good season for you. So we have special guest with us, Wayne Pittz. So we're going to be talking to him tonight. And let's see, a second. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah. For some reason, we're not getting quite his video feed, so we'll get Lee working on that here in just a few minutes. But he is there, just hidden in the background. So we're going to go around the room real quick and just let everybody know how their Beeyard's doing. I'll start with mine. We finally got some rain. We've had over probably 2 weeks of not having any rain up here. I really don't think it's hurting our basswood flow too much. It's been coming in pretty good. Sarahwood on Bulldog's doing pretty good. Last week, it looked like he had got into full bloom, and the bees were bringing in nectar. So I was tickled to death to finally get some Sarahwood to sell. And did some grafting. That didn't turn out 100% the way I wanted it to. Again, just got 7 queens. So I'm going to be talking to this lady over here about grafting some more and maybe see what's wrong. I think, really, to be honest with you, one of the frames ended up that I stuck in there had a queen cell on it, and I think that stopped them from grafting
from building those cells.
larva that I had. So I missed a cell, or missed a cell when I cut them all off, and I put the brood in there. So that can't happen. So that's probably my mistake. But I was happy with the 6 that I got. So I'll continue to work on that. Let's see. Tom and Melissa, I think you guys are doing some honey. Is that correct?
Yeah, so exciting. It's a messy process. We pulled all of our supers. What day was it? Monday? Monday. We pulled our supers. It was like 100 degrees outside. Thomas Allen, stop. Tom's being a goofball behind the camera. Anyway, we pulled half of our supers on, I think it was Monday. It was like 100 degrees outside, and it like literally kicked our butts. And then we were going to finish up Tuesday. It poured like tsunami pour. Not, I guess tsunami's not rain, but like torrential downpour, like 4 inches of rain in no time at all. So we didn't do anything Tuesday, and then Wednesday we went out and finished pulling everything, and then kind of set up our extraction line and how we were going to do everything yesterday, and then started extracting today. So it's been going good. Hot, sticky mess.
Yeah, that's just exactly what Keith said. It's a sticky mess. So,
it is.
So Tom, I think I actually seen Melissa doing some work and some video that I seen. It was kind of interesting seeing that. So
yeah, I know. Even the Haley's Comet flies by every so often. A couple times. A couple times in our lifetime. There's that. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. Those sort of things. It just kind of, things happen. So yeah, We, like Melissa said, we started. Well, I started last night. I worked until probably 10 o'clock, trying to mock everything up, set everything up, and get hoses, everything cleaned, everything sanitized. And that just takes a long time to do. And I'm want to be really picky about what it is that I'm doing here.
I
even though
like
that
seeing
is,
all that
you know,
pretty nice, shiny equipment there. Is that new stuff you got there, Tom?
Most of that is new, with the exception of the 24 frame Hilco there on the right side of the screen. The pump that you see at the very, very bottom center of the screen is new. We have the food grade barrels over there off to the far right with those dollies that they sit on. I've got 5 of the barrels there. We have 2 of them full right now. And then you'll see down kind of in the center of the screen, there's the Hilco clarifier. And I've got the pump hooked directly into that. And it's kind of a little bit of a cluster right there, but that was my idea that I had, where we start off in the very, very back. You can barely see it, the Lyson automatic uncapper. And then it goes to the clarifier at the very end. And then, so basically the Lyson uncapper goes into the one side of the clarifier, and then both of the extractors dump into that same spot, and then it goes to the far end, and it does a fairly good job of clarifying. I'm still going to let it settle out in those blue 55-gallon drums, and then after I do that, I'll clean it again, and then I'll put it into more manageable 5-gallon buckets, food grade buckets, and that's where we'll store them until we sell either a 5-gallon bucket, or we put it into one of the 3 bottling tanks, and depending on if it's light, amber, or the bourbon barrel aged, and then bottle it from there. So that was just my poor man's way of designing a semi-automated system, and so that we can speed up our process. Actually, it works really well. I spent a lot of time last night trying to adjust the automatic Lyson uncapper, and I haven't had any issues with it whatsoever. I called Dwayne from Dogwood Ridge Bees. He was a tremendous help in answering some questions. And then I had called a gentleman that's here in the St. Louis area that runs some more hives than I do. And it was, that's a good picture right there.
Stop it.
Oh, yeah.
Stop it.
So here, let me pause. This one needs some explaining, everybody.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. Oh, look, what's that little caption in the background? Help.
Yeah, what does it
I've
say there?
fallen and I get up. Oh, how about that?
Oh,
We can see you now.
Golly. Listen, all I want to know is who took that picture, because they're in trouble. Okay.
We all one guess who took that picture.
So you guys have heard Melissa talk about her stool that she likes and all this stuff, and her collapsible stool, and that I've used it in the past, and so on and so forth.
Pause.
Uh-oh.
That particular stool is Tom's.
Oh, no, it's not.
Yes, it is. The blue one's yours. The yellow one's mine.
She broke it. It's hers. That's how that goes. But so we had just finished up with the Great Plains Master Beekeeping class, and Melissa was sitting down taking some notes. And at that time, that chair collapsed, and I spun around, and we all seen it. And I said, "Stay there!" And I grabbed my phone to pull it out, and I'm trying to snap a photo because she actually kind of was on her back, and then she went to a sat up position. So anyway, we don't know how that made it on there, but it's a good picture anyway.
Mm-hmm. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
It's my profile picture.
Yeah, I think so. So
I'm not
Yeah.
sure how that picture would have made it on there or not.
yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
No clue.
I feel like Lee was out there.
I feel like
in the
I'm being
background.
ganged up on.
Well, it's all out of love. That's what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
It's a Southern thing. And that's a Southern thing, right? If someone doesn't pick on you, they don't like you, right?
Well, bless
Right.
your heart.
Exactly.
Bless your heart. Yeah.
Word. Anyway, back to the equipment.
Anyway.
So, David Lewis Family Homestead says, how much does John Hill love you?
Well, I don't know. You'd have to ask him that question. I don't know.
He loves you so much that he came down to our house on Sunday and brought
What?
you legs to the extractor
Yeah.
because the legs did not get packaged with the extractor. So John Hill made a trip to our house on Sunday to bring us the legs to the extractor.
Yeah. So, we've all talked before about, customer service and stuff like that. Now, John does have phenomenal customer service. And I realized that I unpackaged the Mega extractor there that I had purchased from him back in June. It was roughly about a month ago when we went to the Missouri Bee Day. That was in Warrensburg, Missouri, which is a few hours from us. And that was our state meeting that we had. So Melissa and I were there doing a small presentation, and we got to visit with other great speakers that were there that day. Cayman was one of them, Corey Stevens. There's a bunch more, but Natalie Summers. Anyway, so yeah, moving on. So I picked it up from there, but unfortunately, I think
of course, we didn't unpackage it until like the day before we're getting ready,
a couple days before, and
to
then
pull supers.
So I realized that I'm like, there's no legs with this. I'm like, well, I can't use it. And so I sent Chris Summers a message, and I sent an email to Hilco. And then I think it was Sunday morning. Is that right?
Was it Sunday or Saturday? It was Saturday.
Saturday, yeah.
Saturday.
I did that Friday night. Saturday, John messages me and says, hey, I'm really sorry about that. He was apologetic, and we were just messaging back and forth. And basically, long story short, he said I can bring it down. And I said, well, Monday's fine. We were going to start extracting on Monday. I said, we're going to push it off till Tuesday. So if you want to get it here Monday, that's perfectly fine. I said, unless you think that next day Eric can get it to me in time.
Mind you, John is only 2.5 hours away from us.
About three, a little over 3 maybe. So John did over on Sunday over his weekend, did run them out to me in the evening on Sunday. And he also brought me another part that I needed.
Saturday. It was Saturday. He brought it out Saturday night.
That's right. It was Saturday. He brought out an extra part for my clarifier for the heater part, and he brought that out. And so anyway, I started installing everything and hooking everything up. So that's why I like to deal with John Hill. Little flaws like that can happen to anybody. I don't fault anybody. He made it right. And that's kind of what, dealing with the business is all about. Somebody takes care of you. So I really appreciate that he did that. And, everything so far seemed to work out. I had one little flaw happen, too, while we were working it, but we were able to overcome it. And, so far it's been well.
And I'm sure he appreciates you guys, Tom, for being so understanding. And, as a manufacturer, we all make mistakes, right? And the last thing we want to do
Absolutely.
is have one of our customers, with a product that's not good. And so him coming in, doing that shows a lot of credibility on his part. So,
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
He spent quite a bit of money in just showing up and dropping that off personally, doing that with his time. So
definitely he did.
Yeah. So
well, that's always been our thing is how he has handled any issues that we've had, or even other people that we've heard had certain issues. He always makes it right.
Yeah.
Right.
But you're absolutely right. I really hated for him to have to come down here. And I almost told him, don't worry about it. But unfortunately, I was going to extract last week and I didn't because of some work and some rain. So I really needed to get this done this week because I have a short week next week and I've got a lot of work to get done out in the field. So I really needed to make this happen. I've promised some customers some deadlines and I'm going to make sure that I make it happen for them. So I needed to get everything done and to stay on schedule. He came through for me. So I really appreciate him going out of his way to make that happen for me. Not every company would do that. A lot of companies probably wouldn't have picked up the phone until Monday morning, so,
True.
There it is.
So before we move on to Lee and Spanky about what's going on at Beeyard, Keith's been and ask, how many production hives do you have? How many?
I don't know. I don't even know how many production hives. How many hives did we put supers on this year? 50?
Well, I would say this. All of my hives, if you're asking strictly honey production hives, a small percentage of them, because I use a lot of these hives for stealing brood out of, making splits off of. Most of the hives that I came out of winter with 80.
Building
And
building frames.
I've built 2 splits out of almost each one of them. and then still pulled a honey crop. Some of the earlier splits that I had done this year built me one super of honey too. So, running 8 frames equipment, and I keep my 7 frames in there. That's what, 30 pounds maybe.
Mhm.
We had out 130 supers. So
And
That's
10 of them.
pretty good when you're not trying
10
to get honey, basically. So
yeah. So we don't really have a yard that's strictly production hives. Not this year anyway, because we were trying to make so many splits and build a lot of comb.
Yeah.
But we pulled 130 supers off of probably, I don't know, 75% of our hives had supers on them.
Yeah, but like I said, 110 of them were full. The other ones might have had partial, a little bit in them. When I kind of tried to consolidate them when I brought them back here.
Yeah.
And then put them in the garage. We threw 2 dehumidifiers in there and fans, and we've been letting it kind of just to make sure everything's dried down, and everything we've been checking.
Well, especially since it's been so rainy the last couple of days, we didn't want any of that humidity to mess up our moisture levels.
Yeah. So I mean, it seems to have been working pretty well. She was checking the moisture contents, and they were running anywhere between. What'd you say?
Oh, some were as low as 15, and then the highest I think I got was 17 and a half. So
which is good. We like to see between 17 and 17 and a half. That's our target goal. I personally think that as the if you can get that moisture they say 18.6, and I'm sure by and large for most nectar sources that probably works, but there are some honeys that'll actually ferment at 18.6. I don't think I have any of them here, and I don't even know all of them that will actually do that. I've heard Bob Benny talk a little bit about it, but we strive for between 17 and 17 and a half. I think when that moisture is constant, or that sugars are concentrated down just a little bit. And what's really weird is I think that by 1 or 2% can make the difference of the honey taste slightly different. It almost tastes a little bit richer, I think. And that's just my opinion though. So we like to be between 17 and 17 and a half.
yeah. So Spanky, what's going on down there in your Beeyard off the mountain?
It's been hot. It finally rained a little bit. I see the bees flying, so hopefully they're visiting something, getting something in them. With it being so hot, it stresses a lot of the bushes and stuff out. So I don't know what all they're pulling off of in terms of what's still flowering. I know the crepe myrtles are flowering now, but I don't know if they really visit those or not. But I see them everywhere flowering now.
So is the honey done down there where you're at, Spanky, or are you still getting some flow coming in?
I mean, I don't know. The last time I was in them was the other week whenever I went and put that box back on after I pulled and extracted it. So I haven't been in them since then. It's been so hot.
Right. So anything, are you done doing your honey, Spanky? You all finished up, got it all bottled up?
No, I've not bottled it. I've got it in a bucket.
Yeah, that's me. I've got most of my honey sitting in buckets just waiting to get it in some jars to sell. And I need to do that ASAP. I've got people asking about it. So.
Yeah, it's a real dark honey. It looks clear. It looks about clear whenever you look at it, like in the combs or on a knife. It looks about clear, but once you fill that bucket about halfway, it looks black.
Right. I bet it's got a good flavor though to it, right?
Yeah, it tastes like it normally does.
Well.
Yeah, I don't know what it's off of.
Right. Well, it's it's some kind of spring honey, right? It's mixed up with about everything, I'm sure. So, Lee, what's going on down there in your Beeyard, down there where it's like the devil lives at, I guess you might say?
I think he took a vacation for the next couple days. We were only in the mid 80s today.
Wow.
We showing rain for like the next 10 days. And out of the last 3 days, I've rained out early all 3 days.
Oh, wow.
So I hadn't been able to get into the bees. Now I did go out there Sunday. I had just enough time to cut the grass back by the hives where it's a lot lower, because I cut it from last time because it was still too wet.
Right.
But one problem, as I passed one of the hives, I caught a little whiff of something that didn't smell good.
Uh-oh.
And I just kind of glanced at the entrance real quick, and they had a bunch of just like eaten up, shredded comb coming out the front of it. Now, that was one of the hives that I had every other box kind of alternated to get some airflow in there. They still had a lot of bees flying in and out of the top of the box. I mean, it didn't really look like robbing. They wouldn't just, fighting to get in, fighting to get out. It looked like, just a regular colony there, but I had some stuff coming out of the front, so I'm figuring they got robbed out a little bit, but I think I may have some beetle issues in that colony.
Ouch, that hurts.
But all the rest of them looked good. It was a little warm that day, so they had some that was out there bearding. But other than that, population looked good. But I didn't get to go into anything because of the rain. I had to hurry up and get it mowed. And by the time I finished, I was putting the mower up and it started sprinkling on me again.
So how's that flow work down there? You guys still getting some nectar coming in, or just enough to keep the colonies going?
Probably barely enough to keep them really going. Now, they had a little bit of elderberry, couple of wild things growing in the woods. I'm not sure what it would be, but as far as our actual production flow, it's over. It kind of ended early for us this year. Our tallow, just the storms that blew through, it blew our tassels off, and we were probably, I figured, 2 to 3 weeks early finishing up this year, just because of the heavy rains that we got. And I probably still got about 20 supers out there that need to be pulled and extracted. With the weather, I ain't been able to get out there and do it all. Between that and working so many hours.
I think that's my problem. I'm just doing too many things to get all my stuff done. And that's not a fun place to be at,
No.
So, well, we're going to go ahead and talk to Mr. Wayne Pittz here. It's been a very good friend of mine for quite a while. Kind of when I got into the Bee Association, he was one of the people that I could lean on to ask questions. The Bee Association at that time had COVID, and they really wasn't doing too good. And I'll never forget, Wayne had mentioned to me, he said, just stick with me. And he said, we'll turn this around and turn it into something. And I'm like, man, I don't know. There's only 6 people here, and this don't look good at all. The people that are here just talking about their bees dying. And I'm like, that's just not the kind of bee association I want to be part of. I come here to get some education. And folks, so let me tell you, this man turned this bee association around, and he brought speakers in. He's worked wonders. I'll have to ask Wayne how many members that we actually got up to, but he stayed president for a couple of years, and this bee station, man, it thrived. He put an education department. He set it up the right way. Let's put it that way. Your president of your bee club sure does make a big difference. And, I'm blessed to have him as a friend and to have him as our president. The time that he took, he did really, really awesome. So, and also I just want to say, Wayne, I appreciate your service. I did sneak in and steal a few of your pictures when you was a little bit younger feller, and probably looked a little bit better back in the day. I don't know. That's why I put my beard on. But, we do appreciate your service so much. The things that you've done, keeping our country safe. Now, we wouldn't be able to keep bees if we didn't have you guys protecting us. So we do appreciate that so much. And if you'll just kind of go through, tell us a little bit about how you got into beekeeping and what kind of got you started, and tell us about how many hives you have. If you don't mind just telling the audience, we'd appreciate that.
Sure. So let's make sure, can you hear me well first?
Yep, sound good right now.
So those photos are of my son. Actually, my son.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, no, my son was in Afghanistan. You're right. He's a veteran of the Army, and he's been in the bee suit more than once too, helping me out in the Beeyard. So he's a kindred spirit. So I appreciate you though for saying that. I was a Peace Corps fellow, so not in the military.
Okay.
I was in the Peace Corps a long time ago. So yes, it's my pleasure to be with you all. My name again is Wayne Pittz, and I'm happy to live in Ashe County, North Carolina. And I'll just give you a bit of background. Kind of an odd fellow because I've traveled around so much, but I grew up here in Western North Carolina, and had been living pretty much since I left high school, living away in different places around the world. Lived in Africa, lived in Latin America, in various countries. And at the time when COVID began, I was living in Guatemala. And I'd been in Guatemala for 6 years. And I got evacuated back to the U.S. and I was already working on building a house in Ashe County. So I came back here, came back home. And so I was really excited to get here. So March of 2020 was when the things got pretty hairy with COVID. When I arrived in Ashe County, the county had just said there were no more short-term rentals. My house wasn't finished. Most of the materials were on site, but I hadn't, nobody was able to do any work. Contractors weren't showing up. You can just imagine what it was like trying to get a house completed in the first few months of COVID when we weren't sure what was going to happen. So it was a pretty crazy time. We came back, my wife and I came back here, and we're excited to, we have a pretty good piece of land in the woods. It was a wooded lot, pretty big tract, I guess, maybe 12 acres altogether. And we wanted to have, chickens and all those things. We'd been to the grocery store here and, no toilet paper was available, but more importantly, there were no eggs, there was no meat, there were no lots of fresh vegetables. There just weren't any. So we sort of became homesteaders because of necessity and out of interest too. But beekeeping had been a long part of our lives. My wife was a 4th generation beekeeper. And you'll see that's our Beeyard when it first got started. So you see how muddy it is. We actually put our Beeyard on top of the septic flow from our house. We had to put in a pump system. And so this was already dug up, and I couldn't drive on it or anything else. So I fenced it in so nobody would accidentally drive on it, and put these tables in the ground. It was super, super wet, the soil here. We couldn't perk. That was the reason why we had to go through all this extra effort and cost to do the pump system. But these are the beehives that I first started with. And, you'll see that I have those tables are in the ground and strapped to the table. That's because we have a lot of bears. And in that first year, we didn't know how bad it was going to get. This was in 2020, maybe 2021 for these. But then our yard has since grown quite a bit. I have bees mostly here, but I have some bees in other locations too. Yeah, those are nail hives. I bought it on a kind of just being curious. My wife and I, we were doing this together. So I would buy one, she would buy one. We would set them up and test. We do different kinds of tests to see what worked with our bees. So sometimes I would do a split, sometimes I would wait. Sometimes, we just kept practicing different things. But this nail hive, this one in particular, the bear got up on the table. I have motion detectors that face inward, and I have an electric fence around the outside, but it's a solar electric fence. And I found that I put the wires actually aligned with those split rail posts. And so the bears were able to sometimes move right through that without really being stopped at all. It's gotten better now. I've been able to get a better connection now and a little stronger pop. But this bear came through the fence. He got a hold of the hive that had a deep, a medium, and a couple of medium supers on top. So it's standing pretty tall. And he got that thing and started trying to wrestle it down and couldn't get it loose from the table. So he turned the whole table over, pulled it up out of the ground, but still couldn't get the hive loose from the table. But the alarm was going off like crazy in my house. So I I've done this many times. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning. So I, get geared up and head down the hill with my with my sidearm to make a difference. And I get down there, and the bear has tried to roll it around. He's actually been able to spill the bees out into the onto the ground, some of them, but it got the bear scared off. And then I got the hive set up and I didn't have a suit on, so there are bees everywhere, and it's dark, and my wife's trying to hold the flashlight. Got it put back up, and that hive has been one of my best producers this year, and I've harvested 2 supers off that one already, and have another one on the way. So it's done fantastic. But the distributor for a nail, I showed him that picture, and he was laughing about that. And they said, "Well, can I buy it from you?" And I said, "Just, you can have it, no big deal." And he said, "Well, here, I'll give you another hive." So he gave me another nail hive, and I took that home and I really appreciated that. And they put this in the bee journal as the photo. That it's almost bear proof, because they didn't want to say it. But the bear, he chewed on that thing, scratched on it, and did all he could. And I've had many other bear incidents, and I've never lost a nail hive. Now I've lost swarm traps. I've lost regular wooden Langstroth hives, but I haven't lost one of these, and haven't lost a horizontal hive either, by the way, Ricky. I don't have those. I don't have those strapped down, but I do have them in the ground. Yeah.
So Wayne, let me ask you, how do you end up being like the biggest bear trap in Ashe County that they all come to your house?
Yeah. I like I said, I lived in a very wooded area. There's nothing really around me. And there was a tract next to me that was, probably 300 acres. We have some of the highest population of deer per capita in the state of North Carolina. And our bear population has just taken off because Ashe County, we're relatively small, low density population here, about 28,000 people living here, but there are large expanses of area that are set aside in conservancies. So wildlife thrives here, and there's a lot to eat, a lot of hickory nuts, just a lot for bears to eat. And so they're thriving. That's for sure.
So I think if you didn't tell me one time, you kept thinking, well, if I keep going out there after that bear, then he's going to finally figure out that I'm a snack. Is that not what you said?
Well, I never wanted to shoot a bear or hurt a bear, but I just wanted him to leave me alone. So I put the fence up, did all that, and I did carry him. I have a 9mm handgun that I'd carry sometimes, and once I was down there with a bear, and that thing, I swear, I unloaded the weapon at the ground around the bear, and it didn't even run. And so then I unloaded. I started thinking, wait a minute, I don't even have another clip. I need to be thinking ahead a little bit here. But yeah, it's never, the bear's never been aggressive towards me. The black bears mostly run. Most of the time, I don't even get to see them. They've done the damage before I get there. And that's, it takes me, my Beeyard is only about 150 meters, maybe 200 meters from my house. And so it doesn't take me long to get down there. And I usually, you think you could see them once you get out, see the Beeyard, but they're gone pretty quick. I think they hear me coming.
Yeah. So you're really trying. First, when you started out, you really tried different hives. You did some nails. You bought a few horizontal hives off of me and some standard hives, and you was really just trying to figure out what worked best for you in your Beeyard, right?
Right. Well, see, my wife and I are both, we're scientists, researchers. So we really wanted to test what worked best here. I was concerned about things like hive beetles, and because our yard was mostly shaded, but we don't have a hive beetle problem here. I've only ever seen one here at this yard. Just trying to figure out what would work. We have no field crops near where we live. All the nectar that we collect comes from the trees. So we have to, and our window of opportunity for collecting honey, our flow period is pretty limited. So we have, lots of poplars, maples, locust, black locust. But now the only thing that's blooming right now is basswood, which I'm really excited about. We don't have sourwood here. Sourwood doesn't grow on the eastern half of Ashe County, and I'm too far north and too high altitude to here too. So, yeah, it's you have to learn the specifics of this area. So we tried a lot of different things, just
Yeah,
testing them out.
if anybody hasn't tried basswood, just give them an idea of what that flavor's like, because I don't like it. It's not one of my favorite flavors.
So basswood is also called lindenwood. Was an introduced tree from Europe that was brought here by the pioneers for many reasons. It has a beautiful flower. It starts in July. Here it's usually the second week of July. It's unique because it has a minty citrus flavor, and it's clear. So most of our honey tends to be darker, like what Spanky was talking about. We have the tulip poplars dark, and so our mountain honey is usually dark. So I pull my supers in early July, and then restock so I can get the basswood honey. I'm expecting that I'll pull starting next week. They're still working it right now, but it's still going. But there's calling for rain here for every day for the next 5 or 6 days. So that should put an end to the basswood, I expect. I didn't mention I have 16 production hives and two resource hives that I use. My resource hives are the horizontals that I use.
And we'll talk a little bit about your horizontals in just a few minutes, but I'd like to switch pace here and have you explain a little bit about how did you turn the Bee Association around in Ashe County? I mean, if you could just kind of go through that a little bit. I mean, folks, I can't tell you enough how this man changed things. And I think, my personal opinion, he just kind of put the right people in place, and it kind of fell together. And I don't know, but let Wayne explain to you, because I think it's important for any of us, if you are in a Bee Association, having the right people in place can make a huge difference of how well it's run and the education department and stuff like that. So Wayne, if you can explain a little bit, when that day when you said, "Hey, stick with me, it'll change," what did you have in mind? What was that big ideal that's like, this will be different. I'm telling you, it'll be different.
Well, let me start with, I didn't intend to become president of the Bee Association or anything else. I wanted to get connected with other beekeepers in the area. My wife and I had a lot of knowledge about beekeeping, things that we had known from growing up around bees our whole lives. But we really were just getting started. We, been a lot of watching Grandpa and watching other people do it, but, not really having done that much of it on our own. We needed an education. So we got connected with the local community college, and they had a beekeeper class, and we got enrolled in the class. And there we learned about the Beekeepers Association in Ashe County. We went to a couple of meetings, and it was a little bit shocking there to begin because, there were a handful of people there, well-meaning people who cared about bees and cared about their environment and cared about getting together. But it really was more of a social organization. So we'd get together, and there wasn't an agenda. It was really friendly, local people saying, "So how are you bees?" And we'd talk a little bit, and we'd usually have some refreshments and all that. But what I, wanted to kind of gauge what others were looking for in a beekeeping association, we started talking about it. I mean, really, we're coming together to learn about how to be better beekeepers. We had a few bee havers, we had a few bee killers. So we wanted to really, step up in the education part, and it needed to be, you have to meet people where they are. So you couldn't, we couldn't start out with lectures on, artificial insemination. We need to talk about basics like start with mites. Let's talk about integrated pest management. Let's talk about really practical things. Do you know what your mite count is? What are the mite treatment options? What about bears? What are you going to do about that? Well, what kind of hive makes sense to you? I mean, I'm talking about the basics. Now, there were a few people, old timers, who'd been beekeeping, and even some that had as many as 40, 50 hives. But their beekeeping practice wasn't always up to date, and their motives weren't always focused on helping other people. So we had to sort of develop a spirit of mentorship. You had to understand that those people who had killed all their bees didn't mean to kill their bees. They just didn't know how to take care of them.
Right.
So tried to really focus on education, community outreach, and then being caring to the members who did, the people who did show up. Find out, what's happening with your bees. What do you need? How can I help you? There were a couple of people who continue to tend even today that really they don't have any bees. They just like attending the bee association. But
Right.
through the classes that we offered, the beekeeping classes that were offered through the local community college, connected to new beekeepers, staying focused on what do the participants want from the Beekeepers Association. So we have evolved. The role, when I last looked, had something like 120, 130 people that had visited at least once, but regular attendees now are about 40 or 40, around 40, 45. And we've had some great speakers. The president of the North Carolina State Beekeepers Association came recently. I've heard a rumor that Bob Benny will be here in December.
That's what we're hearing. Yep.
So we've sort of upped the ante a bit and inviting some really high qualified speakers. A few people are getting left behind because they're not as serious about beekeeping as the rest of us are. Want to just do their own thing. But Ashe County has one of the highest per capita beekeepers ratios in the country. North Carolina in general has, I think, the highest ratio of beekeepers per capita in the country. So there's a lot of backyard beekeepers here, but you should never assume that just because someone has one or two hives, or only one or two hives, that they don't care deeply about beekeeping and want to do a great job and are working to learn more every day. So we just I guess the main thing I would say is just meeting people where they are and try to make sure that there's something for everybody, and don't leave out the nurturing part, the mentoring part, and have someone to reach out to. I mean, I was surprised at how many people that had bees had never actually been to another person's bee yard. That's the thing. Come on out, see how I do mine, get some ideas for me. That's what I did. I started visiting other people's bee yards, trying to learn what they were doing and what questions they had, and try to respond in such a way that we could all sort of grow together, evolve together. So over time, I don't know how many certified beekeepers we have now, but it's several, a dozen. So people are getting serious about education and formalizing their knowledge about bees and doing a better job of
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things was, different people keep bees in different ways. And there wasn't those people that said, that's not the way you keep bees, or you can't do that, or this, like you said, hey, Rick keeps them in horizontals, this person keeps them in the nails, this person, double deeps, or whatever it might be. But a lot of the same practices kind of run together. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's treatments or mites or hive beetles or whatever, that education is all the same. It just, you might keep your bees just a little bit different. But there was never the Bee Association, no one putting nobody down. I really enjoyed that. I really liked that. It was a place to come and learn. And I think that's what's so special about a Bee Association.
Yeah. A few other things. The previously Beekeepers Association would only meet from May until November. That was their course. And I kept saying, and my thought was from the very beginning is like, well, you're having your meetings at the time when I need to be keeping. Yeah. I don't be going to those. Let's have the meetings and learn something over the winter. Let's get ready for the next spring now.
That's right.
Thinking about what we're doing, and several people said, "Oh, it's too cold, and roads are bad, and it gets dark at 5 o'clock. Nobody's going to come." And people came, and we didn't even have that we stopped the pizza, stopped the sort of the social part of it, and made it really like a bee class. And people responded. But sort of I would say appropriate level of education, not trying to be too advanced. Making sure to cover the basics really well, so people knew what to do. That's what we really wanted to focus on.
Wayne, I think you said something that kind of resonated with me. You said when you wanted to turn that club around, you said you met people where they were at. And I think that right there was the key ingredient. When Melissa and I started with our own club, I never really, my expectation of clubs was this. There's a bunch of older guys, retired, with a cup of coffee stained teeth, leaning on a table, and they're all arguing about something that they did like 50 years ago, right? And I'm like, yep, I don't really have time for that, But I will tell you this, I can't speak for every club. We have visited a few, and there's a lot of them that I think that, I don't know, may just be kind of like what I just described. But there's also those out there that like yours, and I think that Brian with the Colorado State Beekeepers Association, they've got another great club. So I think there's great clubs out there, and what they're doing is just what you said. They're meeting people where they're at, and they're figuring out where they need to start, and they're more of a bee class than just a social club. I think there probably is good involvement with both, meaning, we have for hours a little social first half an hour where people can get together and share ideas and talk about
Light
things.
refreshments.
Yeah, a little bit of light refreshments. And then we go into our meeting and bring in our key speaker for them. But we're also trying to understand our demographic. So we're not bringing in like where we're at in eastern Missouri, we're just kind of in the St. Louis area. There really isn't any commercial beekeepers. So it would be silly for us to bring in somebody that is going to talk specifically about commercial beekeeping. I'm not, we wouldn't be meeting people where they're at then. That would be, they'd be like, yeah, I'm not really interested in that. So I think that what you just said encompasses what every bee club needs to do is they need to figure out their demographic. They need to figure out their skill level, where they want to go to. And then at that point in time, they need to bring in the appropriate education from there,
That's right. I didn't really get into the fact that, another, in my opinion, major component was just setting up good meeting practice. So we had to follow the bylaws, follow Robert's rules, have an agenda, send out notices, make sure the minutes were saved, do a treasurer's report, collect dues, the normal things that an organization should do. I mean, that had sort of fallen by the wayside a little bit. And we didn't have a solid directory of names. I mean, I didn't have an email distribution list. We knew that there were beekeepers, and there had been, who had been there in recent memory, but, the visitors who had come maybe one time and never came back, there was no follow-up with them and so forth. So just setting up structures, and then, having regular elections, not kind of, okay, well, who wants to be president kind of thing. It was very, that's how I became president.
Yeah.
Like the one who spoke up the loudest is the one who ended up getting the job. It's, with most organizations, doesn't matter church or anything else, about 10% of the people do 90% of the heavy lifting, and whoever's had their head stuck up is the one who got volunteered to take on a role. But you have good administrative practices.
Yes. It's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because like you said, the person who had their head stuck up the furthest was the one that kind of got called on.
Yeah,
the gentleman who is actually the president of our association, he was exactly what you described right there. He's like, well, if nobody's going to step up, I'm happy to fill the role.
Congratulations, Dan.
And he took over, and he does a phenomenal job, and, like you said, there's key people that do a lot of the work, but it's those people who pour out great dedication that make a club valuable to people. You have to really give it your all, so if somebody's coming into a board position just half-heartedly and you don't have anybody there that's really plugged in, you're really only going to get out of it what you're going to put into it, so that's why we're pretty proud of what it is that we have
Bill.
helped to we're part of a team here. It's not just one of us or two of us. We have an entire team, much like what you do, I'm sure. And it's really phenomenal to have people like yourself to really plug in and help to give back to the community.
And another thing that I think is really important, we started doing these educational outreach programs. This would be things like at the local schools, or maybe there was a band meeting or something like that. And we would take a observation hive out and do a presentation and talk to people about bees or talk to them about pesticides, etc. And some of the members say, "Well, I don't, I'm not a master beekeeper. I don't know that much. I don't know what I can say." It's like, look, they're not asking you to tell you, describe the physiology of a bee. They want to know, they want you to talk about the queen. They want to tell you how many bees are in the hive, or how many, just almost like trivia. Like, just be willing to talk about it with a little enthusiasm, and everything. They'll listen, and try to include as many people as possible. People who don't have reasons to participate won't participate, and you've got to reach out to some. There's introverts everywhere, and you have to push them a little bit or invite them. Sometimes you may feel like as an organizer, like I'm not the only one doing all these meetings. You just have to reach out. People will do it. You just can't wait for them to volunteer. You gotta ask them.
Yeah, I think you did a really good job about that. When you would you offer it, and then if someone didn't, then you would come up to someone, hey Rick, would you like to do this? And kind of delegate it just a little bit, and I appreciated doing that, because sometimes people don't want to put their hands up and say, hey, I'll do it, right? They want just a little push to get them going, and I think that's one of the things that makes a pretty good president, to get things going. Plus we had your wife, who's head of education. She kept, she definitely had the kids. The hardest part was with the kids and stuff, and when we went to the schools and stuff, and those were some memories that they're going to remember for the rest of their life, and those may become the new beekeepers. So that part of the education department is so important. We appreciate you guys doing that.
Yeah, I went to a school presentation at elementary school. My wife was leading it. I was there with my grandson, just holding him while she gave the presentation, and she was asking the kids questions that I thought were pretty tough, and they're raising their hand. They know the answers, and that's because they've been doing this now every year since they've been in elementary school. They've had a bee presentation at Earth Day or some other day, and I mean, they know a lot about it, and they can tell you, and I have a booth at the farmers market every Saturday, and their children come through who have been in those classes, but I always ask them details from the classes. How many honeybees does it take to make a teaspoon of honey, or how long does a honeybee live? What makes a queen live? What's so special about the queen? And they love talking about it, and that's they're getting their parents involved and interested too. I'm always amazed at how many people don't realize the damage that like Roundup can do to your bees. Like, oh, I just killed the weed. No, you killed my bee, and this is what happens and why it happens. So anyway, it's community education is super important.
Well, Wayne, we're going to switch off the Bee Association. I'll talk to you a little bit about resource hives. Now, it doesn't have to be a horizontal hive to be a resource hive. You can use any colony for resources. Wayne's decided that that's what he wants his horizontals to do with it, and he can explain why that's what he's decided to do. And I think you're doing a queen castle this year also, so that's kind of another resource that you can use in your bee yard. And let me tell you, folks, it's so important to be able to pull a frame of brood and stick it in another colony. If you really want a strong colony, if you can get that bottom box with full brood, and it's rocking, and you can take those resources from other colonies, you can really make a hive produce a lot of honey. So that's the cool thing about resources. So go ahead, Mark.
So how did this get started? So the queen castle, I've been using it now for a couple of years, and that is an absolute necessity for small beekeepers. I mean, you need to have a queen castle. It's so important to be able to pull that, that frame with the swarm cell on it and put it somewhere else so you can, isolate that and grow your own queen, whatever. I'm constantly using all 3 chambers of my queen cap. It's a fantastic resource. I suppose that I started with the horizontal hives as my resource hives because I have two, and one of they're different. One is Rick. You can give me the technical specifications, but
One of
one
them's a super hive that folds open, and it's just a little different. You can put a super in the middle, and then the picture that's up front is just a regular standard hive, and just the frames are running all the way across. So
right. So
yeah.
there's just a bit about the flexibility of this. So I can put a queen separator in the center of that and run 2 columns on either side of that box if I want to. So it's got an opening on either end that I can manage the bees there. But you'll see that on this particular photo, you can tell that the bees themselves, the concentration is on that far left side. And so I was, building out this entire, I think it holds 35 frames, I think, right, Ricky? How many does it hold?
It can hold up to 34. So you're right there.
Yeah, 34 frames. I was having trouble early on getting it to build out all the way to the far right side, and I just and then the treatments also, we would treat with oxalic acid or treat with thymol or other treatments as well. So these are all deep frames, and we use our deeps as the brood chambers for all of our hives, the Langstroth hives, and so it made sense to isolate these. We want to pull from here to take to the others. We had more flexibility to move bees around here and move the honey frames, resource frames back and forth. This particular hive, on this day that I took this photo, I pulled three brood frames from this and to put in other hives that were queenless or had weak queens. And this hive just kept on going, no problem. It was it did extremely well. And on the other one, it has a facility where you can add a super in the middle and actually go up. Now I've never done that before. I've kept it just the 34 length. But I just like the flexibility of being able to move that queen excluder or move that the box separator to separate it into different sections. Really enjoyed that, and just it also helped me keep up with the frames. So I knew exactly where I was going to look right away. This one now I've actually moved some frames down to the right side so that they're actually using both ends. It's one big colony here, but they use both ends as entrances and exits, which I really like. And the honey is being built out all the way across. But I've never taken any honey from this hive for our consumption or for sale. I move it around and help strengthen weaker hives or swarms or whatever it needs, whatever I need. So this is my true resource hive, and I try to mark my frames so I can remember where they came from. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm really bad to steal from my horizontal hives also and put them in some of my vertical hives, just my honey producing hives, just because I can just sneak in here and grab a frame out, and throw another empty frame in and walk off, and I've not really done a lot of damage inside that colony. I'm just pulling one inner cover off, popping it in, and I'm walking away. It's real quick and easy. It's almost too easy, and I tend to make those horizontals on the weak side because that's what I'm using them for, especially for me right now, trying to build out to many colonies here on the farm. So
right. So actually, that's what happened to my other hive. I don't have a picture of it here, but I'd taken so many resources that it was too weak to make it through the winter. So in the spring, it was a dead out, but it was full of resources, full of honey. So I was pulling the frames of honey, and putting them, distributing around the yard as I needed them. And swarm moved into that box. unbeknownst to me, I thought they were robbers at first. I didn't even pay much attention to it because there were full frames of honey in there, and now I've got an absolute mess because in that empty cavity. So I've got an opportunity to make some cut comb honey. So that's what today. It started raining when I got started on that today, but yeah, it's I like playing, doing this, having the resource hive idea. I'm not buying any more nukes, and I'm not buying any more queens. My queens are mutts, but I'm happy with them right now. I love the stock that I have, and I like the way that that's going. I might in the future buy a few queens to diversify, but using the queen castle and these resource hives, I've been able to keep, my production hives stronger, and it's helping in the production considerably. I mean, we can't grow enough honey right now, and I don't sure that I want to grow my yard much bigger because I have a full-time job and all that, and that's about all I can keep up with. And my wife, over the last year, developed an allergy to bees, and last time went into anaphylaxis, and she can't help me anymore, so I'm down there by myself now.
Right. So, Wayne, talking about your wife, and I want to bring Wayne's wife on. She's really into the wax production, and she's really heavy in the educational department. I think she'd be somebody great to bring on later onto our channel. But it takes a special wife to put up with a beekeeper, and we're glad to see that you have a brand new grandson there. You're definitely a happy papa, and hopefully he'll end up being a beekeeper. And I know you have bought him a bee suit already because I've seen it. So we definitely want to get Kim on here. It does take a special wife or a special spouse. I mean, sometimes it's the wife is the beekeeper and the guy's just a heavy labor. So, but I'd like to bring her on and say, thanks to her for, the things that she does for the Bee Association and so many other people, and her crafts. She's so crafty. You've got a special wife. You guys as a combination are really awesome together. So.
Yep. No, I'm a big fan. So we've been married 34 years. And like I mentioned, she's a fourth generation beekeeper. And in the family that she grew up in, she had fortunate to have several very strong-minded women, whereas most of the men didn't want women out in the bee yard with them. They thought, they're too fragile to be out there in the bee yard. This is back my grandmother would never have considered at all the idea of going to the bee yard. Kim had some very strong women that were out there. They were out there at 85 years old doing bees, and so she was fortunate to have that example. And so the women were very strong beekeepers in her family. So
she's pretty much was kind of educating you for the most part, when you guys first started, right?
Yeah. Well, when I learned as a child, the beekeeping that I learned is a lot different than what I'm doing now. I mean, I can remember going out with this guy that's an old family member. He's actually from Ashe County. And he'd say, we're going to go find some bee trees. And we'd go down to the creeks and rivers and, follow bees back from the water source back to the bee trees. That's how he'd get bees. That you can't find feral bees anymore like that. Not very often anyway. I've not done it in 50 years. But yeah, there are different practices for sure. And now that I've been through various classes and part of the Master Beekeeper program, I've learned a lot of the science of it, and it's totally different from what I've learned as a child.
Right. So has anybody got any questions for Wayne tonight? If he wants to go, he's more than welcome to stay. We've already talked to him about that. It's up to him, regardless of which way he wants to go. But anybody got questions? Let's see. Isn't it causing weakness in the horizontal worse than in a vertical? Which do you think horizontals take more bee strength to maintain? What do you think about that, Wayne? When you're taking resources from a horizontal, does it weaken it more than a vertical hive? What would you say about that?
I haven't noticed that in particular. Now I do, like Ricky mentioned, I think I have tendency to hit that resource hive pretty hard sometimes. It's more the loss of brood. And that's what I did in the case of that other. I didn't leave them enough brood to get a good to maintain their ball going into winter. I mean, there was just not enough bees left, and I shouldn't have moved. I moved. Did a couple of late. I was trying to. I always say take your losses in the fall, and I still break my own rules all the time. I'll have baseball-sized ball that I try to salvage, and I shouldn't have in that particular case. I won't do that again. I hope. I say that. Knock on wood. I don't know what do you.
Yeah, in DC, as long as resources are coming in those horizontal hives, you're still good to steal frames out of them. When those resources get low, it's just like a vertical hive. You better be careful with it. And I will say this: when I first started with horizontal hives, I used to put strip comb in them, and I dropped that into a horizontal hive, and instead of drawing worker brood, they were doing drone brood. And I was a new beekeeper at the time, and I didn't realize how much drone brood that hive had occurred. And the next thing you know, it was down to having 2 frames of brood. That's all they had. And I kept thinking, why aren't they laying over here all this other stuff, And so that was a big mistake on me when I first started. So.
Yeah, I saw your follow-up question too. Yeah, I mean, certainly pulling a single frame here and there is not such a big deal, but I have pulled multiple frames. I think in this one that we just showed the picture of, I pulled 5 frames from that 2 weeks ago, and that's a pretty big hit. 3 of them were brood frames, and it's doing great today. I mean, it's doing fine. So you have to watch closely, make sure they're able to keep up. But yes, I've not had a problem with this. With this one in particular, I've not had an issue.
And Lisa, midwife, she's got a horizontal hive that's basically set up as a resource hive. It's 20 frames with three framers that you can do splits off of. Or is it 4? I think it's 4. 3 framers. I can't remember. And that's Greg Burns' design. Greg Burns was on here earlier. That was his idea to use that as a resource hive. And then JW that's on here a lot, he's got that same configuration. It's a resource hive. So they do make really good resources, easy to work. But you can use just what Wayne did there, same standard hive and do it that way. There's no problem doing that whatsoever.
As I take frames, I will tighten it up, and so I'll tighten it up and move it to the left. That's around this one, and I'll tighten it up and I'll move empty drawn frames to the right for storage.
Yeah,
and
yeah. Sometimes when I'm stealing, I'm really just taking a frame of brood out, putting a comb back in. So really, she's just ready to start laying it up. They'll clean it up just a little bit, and next 2 days, she's already laying eggs in it. So set them back in brood, but they're still going. They're not drawing comb all the time. So,
well, I think it depends too on how many colonies you're keeping in that resource hive. Like if you're just keeping 1 colony in there, then repeatedly robbing from it is going to weaken it. But like ours, we keep 3 colonies in there. We have to rob from it, otherwise it gets too big too fast. I mean, last year I think the 1 colony that we had in there, we stole probably 20 frames over the course of a season at least from it, just so it wouldn't overgrow the space that we had designated for it. And it overwintered just fine, didn't have any issues overwintering. So I think it really just depends on what you're doing with it,
Right. And that's, like you're doing, almost 10 frame, 3 10 frames in the same box,
Right.
So if you don't dilute that thing back a little bit, they're spitting out and swarming on you. So very, very quickly. And you're doing the cut comb jars on the top, which is really cool. So
yeah.
But, anybody else got any questions for Wayne tonight? if not, we'll get Lee to throw the link up there and let anybody else that'd like to come in and chat with us tonight. Wayne, I do appreciate you coming on, brother. It's been great having you. You're a blessing to me, a good friend, and we're constantly talking to each other every day. It seems like we are talking back and forth. Yeah, I appreciate you showing that off. So we went out to dinner the other day. Give him and my other buddy Jeff a hat. These guys are great to talk about bee stuff every day, and it's great having that connection. You know, just the same connection we're having here tonight. That's the same connection that I have with these two fellers. Great gentlemen. You know, Wayne, you're welcome to stay on and continue to talk with us tonight, or you can jump off. That's totally up to you. We're going to add your New River Facebook page on here. If you want to see some things that Wayne gets into, you're welcome to go to his Facebook page and log on. And like I said, his wife really does some pretty cool stuff. You know, if you go in there and see something that you like, he'd probably ship it out to you. But he's in everything. I'm going to tell you, folks, he's in everything. This guy's like almost like a doctor and an attorney, and I mean, I swear he's into everything. A farmer, so yeah, great guy. Yeah, so Greg Burns is on here. He's, like I said, the Lighthouse Hive is something that Greg Burns designed, and it's a resource hive. It's the last year we pulled 16 queens, 2 nukes, made 90 queen cells and starters, all from our Lighthouse horizontal hive. So again, that's Greg Burns' design, and we continue to modify that hive to make it better. That's the other thing I like is, you know, Wayne's told me stuff about his hive and say, hey, you know, did you know that the plywood was coming loose on the top? You know, yeah, we've moved that over the CDX plywood and outdoor plywood. So, just like talking to Melissa earlier on the broadcast, talking about heel code, when someone tells you there's something wrong, listen to them and make that improvement. Don't think it is they're beating you up. You know, it's to make you better as when you're producing stuff. So, yeah, so Lee, if you want to throw the link up there tonight, if anybody wants to come in and chat with us tonight for the next 45 minutes, we'd be glad to listen to you guys. So where did that Tom run off to, Melissa?
I don't know. No, he's getting a bite to eat.
Oh.
We use the internet going down as a chance to like shove some food in our face real quick. And so, like, how convenient. We can eat before 10 o'clock really fast.
Right. All right. I got that link pinned. Anybody's welcome to come in and chat with Wayne tonight or us and have a good conversation. And we'll continue on. And I'm just going to say, you know, I'm almost ready for the sourwood to be over with and kind of getting ready to kind of start winterizing my hives, you know. So DC says, Rick, how is the hive doing? Looks like it's slowing down. Actually, DC, this thing is booming right now. I did send Lee some pictures of it, but I'm going to.
You muted yourself, Ricky.
There we go. So you guys can see it real quick. What you think about it, but it is really getting big.
Wow.
So the basswood is almost over with, but you see that white comb there? So there's still a little bit coming in right now.
Well, what kind of honey harvest do you think you're going to get off that hive?
I'm not touching it this year.
Hey, can you open it up and grab the comb out of there? I want to see what color it is. I can't tell from there.
Yeah. I think I'll pass on that one tonight, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. So we did do our first cutout of a chimney, and Tom, have you ever done anything with brick before? That was our first experience with that. So
we turn those
don't-
down. We refer those to somebody else.
I don't touch
Oh,
it
okay.
because if it's something that I'm not familiar with, I'm not going to do it. And brickwork is one of those things. Anytime we've ever been presented with that, we've done some that were very close to a chimney and they were getting in near the chimney. But when I determined that they were in a 2-story house they were getting in that area, but they weren't in the chimney. Now I did have to
You did that one in the attic. They were kind of in the chimney.
I did have to kind of chase some out where you have to be careful because sometimes they'll try to run off the comb when you're, cutting out comb and stuff, they'll kind of run off, and you sometimes will have to, if there's a void like in the flue space, you'll have to kind of, run them out of there. So I've had to do that a couple of times, and that's where like a honeybee gone. That tends to work pretty well. Or worst case scenarios, maybe a beego, but I don't typically like to use that inside of a home because that typically runs the customer out too.
Yeah.
yeah,
Runs the
That's for
beekeeper
sure.
out too.
Runs the beekeeper.
yeah, that's right.
Runs everybody out.
Yeah. So when it comes to actually, if I have to remove brick, I don't do that.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it that I figured out when I did the brick was all the honey, and this thing was crazy. They was like this much honey, that much honey, probably almost a foot and a half of honey, 3 big combs all the way to the back. But the brick dust kind of hit the cappings. There wasn't nothing I could do with the honey but feed it to the bees.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's about it.
It's pretty much over with. I mean, you couldn't do nothing with it.
Yeah.
And then what was even stranger about that little colony was the brood was like this. There was 3 little frames of brood.
Really?
So they, I don't know. That was wild. But she didn't have no more brood in it, and they were solid, pretty brood patterns. So it wasn't a very old colony. It was probably an early spring colony, but they had pretty much set her down to just a small area, which surprised me. So,
Well,
Yeah.
it sounds like if that brood pattern was that tight, it was probably a new queen. If they had just swarmed to that area, you can always generally get an idea when you're looking at the color of the comb and how old it is, or if it's brittle, or if it's soft, malleable.
yeah.
And how long they've been in there.
Yep.
So the last cutout that we did last week, was it last week or the week before? Last week. Yeah. Was it last week? Yeah, it was last week. Anyway, it was in a retirement community condo complex, and they were redoing the deck balconies on these condos, and the construction guys are like, there's bees here, we can't do this deck, you guys need to take care of these bees. So we got there and we did, and they had told us that they had a pest control company out there, and they had sprayed them, and they'd sprayed them twice, and it would knock them down for a few days, but then they'd be back. So we already knew we weren't going to be able to save any of this comb that's in there because pesticide, even to melt it down, there's still pesticide residues in it, right? So we knew we were going to have to trash everything. But I'm like, they're like, but if they sprayed them, why do they keep coming back? I go, well, the floor joists are running like this. And I go, it really depends on how the bees built their comb in there. If they built their comb this way in the floor joist, that first piece of comb is really preventing any of that pesticide from penetrating inside the colony. So there's still bees, brooding and hatching, and they're probably not getting the queen, if that comb is blocking all the pesticide going in. And I go, because if the comb was built this way, with the joist, that pesticide would just go straight through the colony, and it would have taken them out, and then you'd have a nasty roach infested honey mess on your hands.
Mm-hmm.
So luckily that they had built the comb this way, so the pesticide didn't go through. The numbers were okay in there when we opened it up. There wasn't a whole lot of brood, so I don't know if maybe the queen did get killed, or maybe because they kept getting sprayed, they maybe killed the queen on their own, or there was a virgin in there. We really haven't gone back, after we put the bees in the hive boxes.
Mhm.
We haven't had a chance to go back and check on them yet because we didn't see, we didn't actually catch a queen while we were, removing the bees. So that'll be interesting to see if we find well, she wouldn't be a virgin anymore, but there was no young larvae or young brood in there at all. It was all capped brood. So we'll have to see if we can combine
So,
them.
Melissa, that you're talking about how that comb is turned, most of the colonies that we're doing the cutouts, and it's kind of really interesting you see this, is that the comb, instead of, running like our hives, like this to the entrance, right? For some reason, right at the entrance, there's usually is a piece of comb that wraps right around the front of that, which during winter will actually knock some of that draft off, right? So that when they're up clustered into that, I find that so amazing. And
so Randy has talked about this before, Dirt Rooster, about you'd be amazed what you learn from doing cutouts with how bees really want their hives configured,
That's right.
and where they're located and what, north, south, east, what side of structures they're located on and whatnot. And it really is true. And Dr. Heschbeck, I think he's a doctor.
I believe so.
Bill Heschbeck, which Better Bee with Dr. Peck has done an interview with him on Better Bee's channel. Anyway, he talks about the condensing hive and how about the airflow in the hive and how, the bees really don't need all this ventilation that we all keep trying to give them. And, the bees keep trying to tell you that, but everybody's obsessed, just focus on they need ventilation. When, if you think about it, when they're living in a tree, they don't have ventilation. They have their little hole that they're going in, and that's it, And it makes sense to us after, we're listening to him talk, because even we run the majority of all of our stuff has screen bottom boards, which we still leave the screens out of the bottoms when it starts getting warm out. It does help with bearding a little bit. But our inner covers, there's the hole there, right? On the inner cover, we don't use that hole because we don't use the feeder that goes over it or anything. So we always put screen over it, 1/8 inch or smaller window screen. We staple it on there. That way we can, if we want the bees to have that upper entrance, they can, depending on which way we turn that inner cover. And I tell you, 9 times out of 10, they completely propolyze that screen. They shut that ventilation down. They don't want it. They have no interest in that upper ventilation.
Yep.
And furthermore, the last 2 seasons, we started leaving our entrance reducer in on that 3 or 3.5 inch opening.
Yep.
So I'll tell you, we keep 90% of our hives are in pretty well most sun the entire day. We always run double deeps, 8 frame, entrance reducers in when that 3.5 inch opening was, and we do have screen bottom boards. And most of the time, there's times that I forget to pull them out. And then when it gets to be really hot, I'll go ahead and slide them out. And then I usually don't put them back in until I remember to do that, usually late in the season. But honestly, I've never had an abscond because of that. So, but that was the kind of what made me think about it. Everyone talks about, well, especially when you get to that robbing season, and I'm like, well, it's much easier to defend this space than is this space. But then everybody, even mainly new beekeepers are all like, oh, my bees are bearding. I think they're going to abscond, or I think they're going to swarm. Usually it's swarm is what I hear. Yeah. And, and then everybody's like, pull the entrance reducer out, And I'm not trying to tell somebody what to do. Right. But at the end of the day, I leave mine in, and I've never had a colony take off because they were too hot or something. I mean, and again, this is Missouri weather. It's humid. We can hit 100 degrees. We can hit a little over 100 degrees. Now, I'm not saying maybe some of those guys that are down south in Texas where it might hit 115 or 119, you might do something a little different than what I'm doing, but I'm talking about me in my area. So to each their own. My bees only have to defend this much space. And every cutout that I've ever done, I've never seen a huge opening. They just if there is, they shrink it down. So I'm just going by what I see. So
And that's
You know?
like one of the horizontal hives, the very first one that I built. Right at the entrance, I made it like a 1-inch gap, and the frames were right at that 1-inch gap, and it was 10 inches. And not only did they close the entrance up, they built propolis all over the front of those frames and completely changed airflow. Majority of it was going to the right, and there was a little hole going back to the left. So the bees had figured out this is the airflow we need for this hive. Now, when we started talking about stealing from resources, I was stealing frames from that hive. It made me wonder later on, did I mess that hive up because they had the comb built to the way the flow of the air come through that entrance? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like my third year, I started stealing frames out of it, and that colony collapsed, and I barely got it back strong enough to get it through winter. And I'm wondering if it wasn't me messing around with the frames inside of it. So, but the entrance, again, if you look at cutouts, it's tiny. It's teeny tiny. The crack in that cinder block wall, I bet it wasn't even an inch that they were going into. It was amazing.
1/4 inch is all they need. And
And sometimes behind that little bitty opening or that entrance there's a colony back there that's just banging strong, you know?
Yeah, it's really amazing. So
yeah, those are the same things I observe too when doing cutouts, and everything is not created equal. You know, every scenario is not the same. You know, they might have a little bit more shade in the area that they're building it. So I understand that everything is not 2 deep boxes with the telescoping cover and a small entrance. I realize that every cutout is not that same parameter. You know, so there are differences for sure. But, and, you know, from one area of the country to the next area of the country, you might do something a little bit different because our weather patterns are not all the same. You know, guys that are down far south are going to have different weather patterns than what I have up in the Midwest, and vice, you know, going all the way up to the far north. So, that's why I've always been a big, you know, fan when somebody says to me, yeah, I'm going to try this. I'm like, yeah, actually do. And I'm like, let me know what your results are, you know?
Exactly.
I mean,
well, that's the cool thing about a backyard beekeeper. We can do these kinds of projects if we want to, right? And play around with it, you know?
Yeah, most definitely. That's right. Yeah. So if there's something that you want to know or you want to try, you know, have an extra hive or something and try something different with it. You know, if it works out, I mean, who knows what could be developed off that? There could be some new, you know, innovation that people in beekeeping start utilizing that because of something that somebody found out, you know? So, I mean, you know, if it fails and doesn't work out, maybe you try something different, you know?
Right. So DC's asking, you get super hot in the summer. How do your bees do with the heat?
So I'll just tell you, for example, so it just started to get really cool. And this morning it was like 66 degrees, low humidity. And today's high went up to, I don't know,
75, 79.
Yeah, which is completely unheard of here this time of year.
Especially when it was 100 at the beginning of the week.
July and August, this for us is dog days of summer. I mean, the sun is at its peak. You know, it's just
500% humidity.
Yeah, the humidity is very high.
No breeze.
Yeah, usually no breeze. And I mean, yeah, we can see, I would say very typical. Middle 90s is very typical, but we can also see 100 degrees. I wouldn't say you'd typically see 105, but it is possible to see 1 or 2 days that could hit that, you know, on some stretch.
Definitely the upper 90s, usually in the July and August.
Right.
But the heat doesn't seem to affect the bees other than they might be bearding, you know, but it doesn't affect them any other way.
No.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So, Tom and Melissa, so is this going to be a big weekend for honey extraction for you guys?
Well, we're doing our honey this week, which I guess we're probably not going to get it done until Sunday. But our club that we belong to, the Eastern Missouri Beekeepers Association, they're doing an extravaganza on Saturday where people who don't have extraction equipment, there's a small fee tied to it just to cover costs of renting the facility and, you know, stuff like that. So we have an extravaganza going on Saturday that several of the club members, including us, will bring our extractors in and our equipment and help people extract their honey and show them how to do it. It's usually a lot of first time beekeepers coming in, you know, to get their first honey crop. So they're all super excited. So yeah, we'll be doing that all day on Saturday, and then Sunday finishing extracting our own stuff.
Yeah, hopefully we'll finish on Sunday. I have a pretty big workload next week out in the field, so
Got to get it done this week.
I've got to get it done. Just want to answer DC's B's question. He went to basic training, probably Fort Leonard Wood. I'm guessing if he's Army. Yes, we're in Missouri. Fort Leonard Wood is about an hour and 15 west, a little bit south, but west of where I'm at. So
Unless he was in Illinois.
he said Missouri.
Oh, that's right.
It could be Scott Air Force
But
Base, which
that's
is
in
over in
Illinois,
Illinois,
yeah.
but you're probably thinking Army,
Fort
which is
Air, yeah.
Fort Leonard Wood. So
Yeah.
Tom Mack brought up a really good point there that talks about water droplets in there. I will absolutely say that have a good water source for your bees, and that doesn't mean just a dish of water. We one year, Melissa had a whole bunch of vegetable plants in containers on our patio that was down below, so it was constantly getting watered.
Because I'm not allowed to have a
And-
garden in the actual yard.
She can't mess up my turf grass. I know that goes against beekeeping rules, but it's my lawn. So all the excess water would run off the patio and down through a 3-foot retaining wall that I had built, and moss, it kind of faced north, and moss would grow on it. The bees absolutely loved that water source, getting the nutrients and
The
probably
minerals
some
and
type
stuff.
of mineral content from the water coming out of that wall where the moss was at. And so it can be something as simple as that. So when we look at putting up a new Beeyard, I look at a lot of different things, and one of the parameters that I have that I look for is some type of a water source that's semi nearby. That can be a pond, it can be a creek, it can be a lake, it can be a river, something where there's some sort of water in July and August. It doesn't have to be a lot because the bees will find it, but something that's not a half a mile away, and that seems to make a difference, So
Hey, Spanky.
Hey.
How you doing? Let's you and I talk for a while. I'm tired.
let's do it.
I'm
What do you
tired.
got?
Yeah.
Hit me with it. How was your dinner?
Oh, ribeye special, oh buddy. Ribeye special.
So how's everything going at your place, JW?
I've been putting bees out of the little boxes into big boxes about all afternoon. So it's a nice day. It was good breeze, wasn't too hot. I tore into a bunch of them. I had bees flying everywhere.
Yeah.
So I had some nukes that was loaded up. Some of them was 5 deep, 5 high. I had
Oh,
to get
wow.
Yeah.
That's a strong breeze waiting to come through your Beeyard there.
Well-
Knock that sucker over.
I keep them all. I keep ratchet straps on.
Strap
all
it
of
down.
them.
Yeah.
If I go over 3 deep, I ratchet strap them.
You have to with those nukes.
So I was a little late getting in. I'm not one of these bee guys that can, quit in the middle of the afternoon. I got to finish up my chores before I go in.
Yeah. Melissa makes me do the same thing, JW.
Well, I never noticed that.
Yeah, she never lets me come home.
Oh.
I never let you come home.
Well, I've got mine's not bad about letting me in the door, but it's not because of that. For work, it's just because she.
Right there, that picture is why I don't let him come home.
Can you believe somebody took that picture of her, JW? I mean, she even has that caption there, and I don't really,
That's just the way I
No.
thinking these
the sad
women
thing
are most
is?
of the time, on
There's the puppy.
their behind leaning back.
She was sitting down on the job, is what it was. That's how I seen that.
No, you know what the sad thing is you'd think I'd learned my lesson sitting on his stools, actually, because his other blue stool, I actually fell off that one also when we were doing that big swarm. Remember, it collapsed, it like broke sideways because I was kind of sitting on the hill,
Mm-hmm.
and I about took Tom and the hive out with me and I fell down.
As soon as she flipped over, I told her, quit playing around. We got work to do. She's over there laying on her
I
back.
didn't put some overload springs on that dude. So
I've had mine for like 2 years and it's never collapsed or busted. I get Tom these blue ones and 2 of them have broke now.
The only time I use that stool is when I'm going through a nuke. If we've made some splits or I'm building a nuke or I'm going through it, checking for queens, marking them, things like that. That's the time that I use it. Every other time that I don't. So basically my stool doesn't get used and proof tested until she breaks hers and she jumps on it.
No, I didn't break mine. My old one is still working. I had to buy you your own after you made fun of me for having it, but you kept stealing mine.
She's just bitter, JW. We're just going to move on and talk about some bees here.
Rick, I got a question for you on the long wing straws.
Yeah.
How heavy I'm going to make me some slider divider board, so to speak. You understand what I'm saying? How heavy do I need to make them where they won't move around? Half inch enough, or is that too much? Or what do you normally usually make your sliders out of?
Yeah, it needs to at least be half inch, JW. And you got to be careful. You don't want them to be able to touch their tongues, from one section to the next. They transferring, pheromones across. So 3/8 would be enough, but if you don't get some really strong 3/8, it'll flex on you, roll on you. So half inch is about what I use. So you can go up to 3/4 if that's what you'd like.
Well, mine's got you've got some cut for mine, that's got the permanent slots in them, but I need if I draw my hives down a little bit this winter and take some honey out of them, I think I'm going to draw them down and I'm going to put a slider in there. Is that the proper thing to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yep. So you want to be able to take that slider and go all the way through the box like a follower board, basically, right?
Yeah, that's the way that's what I'm wanting to do. So
yeah.
If a guy gets some good plywood, half inch would be heavy enough to where it won't twist around and so forth.
Yeah. Half inch is what I suggest for sure. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want, I can send you a 3/4 inch board. Just send it to you if you want one.
Oh, that's not necessary. I've got enough equipment, and my dad was a carpenter, but I don't claim to be one. So I know what you're supposed to do. I just don't like to do it, So.
Right.
It's,
Yeah, did you see that, Tom? You need to get a Hilco to make you a stool, man. Heavy duty.
It needs to be collapsible though, so that it fits on the truck. Doesn't take up a bunch of room on the back of the truck.
Well, you don't need to. If you leave Tom from back there, you'd have a little more space.
That's true.
What I think I hear her saying under her breath is she's going to buy me a new Super Duty, thinking 4 doors with the long bed. And if I'm really lucky, maybe we'll go with the dual
inside of yours, right?
Say again.
You got a dent in the side of that truck, right? You do definitely need a new one, right?
That somehow. Mine's it's not a new work truck. It's an older one. It's a 2004, and somehow it comes back to my house, and I wasn't driving it. And there's a big dent on that extended cab door, and it was the same color as the paint that was on the gate at one of the farms that we go to. So that was pretty ironic. Yeah.
I definitely think you deserve a new vehicle.
I'm thinking so too.
Maybe we should put a vote in the chat, and see how many people feel like Tom needs a new vehicle. Put some peer pressure on Melissa here.
That's right. Drop your comments. Well, let's hear what you have to say. I'm sure he's got something he's going to throw in there for us.
Yeah, hopefully Leo will say something about this. I don't know what Leo will say.
I'm the only one that gets embarrassing pictures put up of them, like nobody else.
You were the only one sitting down on the job. Everybody else is working.
Man.
I'm pretty sure there was a picture of me posted last week too. when we were out eating. But
Now I got to comment, Ricky, a little bit on that extraction setup of that via operation out there in Missouri. And they say that quote unquote poor boy operation, you know, with them high dollar extractors and pumps and double 32 frame extractors.
Yeah, all that fancy
That looks like a poor boy operation to me.
that one is an 18.
It's a 24.
24. I don't know what it is.
I'll tell you, you know that she doesn't load that thing because she doesn't know how many's in it. It's because she was sitting down on her stool. That's why.
They both look like 32s to me. Unless
32.
I don't know where he's been lying to you or not.
The 32 has the
you've been looking at it too.
Yeah.
I have to say though, after using the 24 and the 32, I actually like the 32 better. It's a little more stable. So just food for thought if anybody else was looking at buying one.
Well, that's not completely fair though, because the 24 has wheel casters on it.
When it didn't have casters on it, it was still less stable.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so on those
I'd
extractors,
really like to have something like that, but I can't afford that kind of stuff. I can tell you.
Oh, get out of here! That's a lie.
I'm a poor old farmer.
If you start selling those raccoons,
Yeah.
you can start selling those raccoons. You'd have plenty of money.
You know what?
those
Something
raccoon
just
cats.
Well, I tell you, I hope I'm getting a handle on them finally. I didn't get in this morning, so.
Something just hit me. You said you were a cattle farmer. Do you think that those masked-looking cats you're out there? You don't think those are cattle, do you? You're not.
You need to get on Facebook. I think I sent you some pictures of those cats.
Oh, you did?
And they're about to break me too. I've got 17 people bring them out from town and dump them.
Hey, what's your address in case I find any?
I think that's Tom. I think Tom keeps taking them out to your place, JW.
I don't suggest it. I've had 17 spayed to keep them from having babies. And if you got over 10, I jewed them down to $107 a piece. So figure that up. 17 females at $107.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I'd take mine pretty far to get them done cheap. They want like $200-$300 here per cat. They don't do the straight. We'd drive like an hour away.
10 or more, their regular rate's 147. He told me, you know, he took $40 a head off. I had 10 or more. Isn't that ridiculous?
It is.
Were you gonna ask something, Ricky? About the extractor?
Yeah, the extractor. I see that you guys do you have it bolted down to the floor, or are you guys just leaving it freestanding?
Freestanding.
Really? How come you don't board it down or?
Well, I've thought about it. I have in my head, I haven't had an idea that I liked well enough. So yeah, it's just sitting there.
That 32 frame though wasn't moving around at all, really, was it?
No, here's the thing though. Anytime you're using a centrifuge, you really need to do your best to try to make sure it's weighted properly. So if I have one frame that's really heavy and one frame that's not, I start when I place him in there. I was telling my son this earlier. I'm like, I tried to tell that to him. I'm like, he kept trying to spin it. And I said, you got to go slow. Let it sling out where it's a little heavy. It'll sling out a little faster. It'll even itself out. And he couldn't get it to even itself out. And I said, I don't think you loaded it well enough. And I said, you really have to think about that when you're loading a heavy frame, load the other heavy frame opposite side. Same principle goes with light frames. And I said, you're never going to get every frame is going to be exactly true. So I said, do your best to try to, load it like that. And that really does help. But like I said, the 32 seemed to be a little more stable than the 24 did. They both work fine. I don't really have any issue with either one of them. So
that extractor looks like it done a nice job, Tom, getting serious,
yeah. Well, I mean, it's a poor man's version of a $40,000 line, like a mini line. So I've said this before. And so anybody else that's never has never heard me, or I'll just repeat myself. Extracting honey is not my favorite thing to do. It just is not. If somebody came to me and said they wanted to offer me decent money for all of my frames and boxes like it was, I'd sell them so I wouldn't have to extract it. So I just don't like doing it. It takes a lot of time out of my schedule. I have to take a whole block of my schedule,
like a week.
Yeah, to get this done. And that's difficult for me to do because, I still have to get my landscaping customers
especially
taken
since
care
we
of.
don't have a dedicated honey room.
Yeah, if I had a dedicated honey room, that would change the game a lot, I could set things up and leave them set up, and I would probably bolt things down. I would run I wouldn't have extension cords in the floor. They'd all come in overhead. Just all those things that you want to do. But, my first initial use of that Lyson automatic uncapper, I actually don't have any qualms about it. I probably have 110 gallons that we've already run through that just today. And I got started late because I was trying to set everything up and make adjustments to it. And I haven't had any misfeeds. I haven't had any problems. So I guess I did a pretty good job of setting it up and adjusting things on there. But it works really well. It's a small system. It doesn't take up a lot of room. It's not overly heavy. For what it does, it's fairly it's not super complicated. And as long as the thing lasts a long time and I don't have to do a lot of maintenance to it besides cleaning and greasing and things like that, I'll be happy with it. I would have preferred to go with a USA product.
But Maxent is really the only one that's a USA product, and they use a chain.
Cowan's USA too,
but
I think.
Maxent is a chain uncapper, and we did not want a chain uncapper because it just chews up your comb.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with it. I've seen them in use before, but from what I've seen, I did not want a chain uncapper. I wanted hot knives, and I needed something that I could afford, and the Lyson was kind of it. So.
And we got it at Nobby, so we got it discounted also from buying it at the show. So always keep that in mind when you're buying any big pieces of equipment. If you're going to one of these big, bee conferences, a lot of the dealers will offer discounts.
So they don't have to haul them home.
Yeah.
I've always said this before. I don't care if you want to keep 1 hive, 2 hives, or you want to keep 500 hives. Try to make your plan up for what you want to do, your goals, set those up now. And then, you always have to plan for contingencies and such, nothing is set in stone, especially beekeeping, right? But understand what it is that you want to do or what your goals are for the next year, and then make your decisions, start setting yourself up over the winter time. That way, next year when it gets here, you're not in the middle of your season trying to do something that should have been done in the winter time,
DC, I've taken footage. I'll take more when we do more, but I plan on making a video. Yes.
What was that you had out today on it? You had something else?
Oh, I just did a little short. Yeah.
Okay, that was a short. Okay.
Yeah.
We can probably make, if everyone is interested, we can make one showing the operation of it, and I can kind of talk through it just a little bit, and then show it in operation and how it works. We're happy to do that. That's something else
I know what he's talking
to think about is, and this is one thing that I really dislike. So when on my landscaping equipment, I can go to a dealer and they'll give me a loaner or a demo, and I can use it for a day, use it for a week. I can check that machine out. If it's a skid steer, if it's a new mowing machine, they'll be like, here, take this out, take it for a week. I want to know what you think of it. But there is not, when it comes to honey extraction, there is not a company out there that says, here, take our Cowan, our $40,000 Cowan line, take it and go use it for your honey extraction and tell us if you like it. I get it. It's not the same thing as it has to be set up, but so, you're always trying to get other people's feedback and opinions about what it is, the pros and the cons, what they liked about it, what they didn't. And I had talked to a few different people that had one. And unfortunately, I didn't get to see any of them run. I did get to lay my eyes on one for a guy that had one here in St. Louis, but I didn't get to see it actually run. And we talked about it a lot. And that's when I decided that that was the brand I was going to go with. So I just wish there was a different way to go about it. You drop a lot of money on something and you're just praying and hoping that it meets every need that you have. So
DC asked about the roller uncapper. So that's a simple Harmony Farms uncapping thing. And that's what we actually had before we got this. And I actually like that. It worked really well. I think it's about $400 or $500 for that thing.
Yeah.
It worked really well. The only issue that we have with it is you get a lot of, because it doesn't like cut the cappings off. It just kind of slices them and slices down them basically. So you get a lot of small cappings. You don't get, like, if you're wanting to do wax collection, you're not going to get the wax out of that because it's just slicing those cappings. So you get a lot of like little wax cappings in your honey, and that kind of slows the process because you have to strain all that out. But it works really well. Like we use that. That's what we used up until this point.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
Yeah. So if somebody's looking for something that's cost effective, yeah, Ricky's got it right there. He has it mounted. That works well. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, in my opinion, the downfall to that is it doesn't take the wax capping off. It doesn't shear it off. It pierces them. It slices them. So when you go to put it in your centrifuge and you sling it out, a bunch of those cappings will come off. So now your slowdown is going to be straining or filtering the honey, getting all those wax cappings out. And that's your bottleneck right there.
But it does work really well. And actually, there's no video on our YouTube page on it, but if you go to our Facebook page, which is just Via Honeybees on Facebook, there's videos of us using that in our Facebook videos. If you guys want to see
How
that.
long did we use it for? 4 years?
Yeah, something like that.
I think we used it for 4 years. And last year when we had, we ran 2,500 pounds through it, I told her, I said, I'm not doing this again. I'm like, we're making a change. I just need to figure out what it was.
So
Well, for me, I was using a hot knife, and I've gotten so big, it's like there has to be a change made, and that works really good. And I tell you what I found, Tom and Melissa, is if your honey is like you take it right out of the hive and run it through that decapper and don't let that honey cool down, man, that decapper works way better. If you let that honey cool down, it don't slice those cappings quite as good, and it seems to me like you get more cappings in your honey. That's kind of what I learned. But it really bites in the comb deeper and slices them really good. But I usually dip mine twice. Did y'all dip yours twice?
Same.
Once?
Yep.
Yep. Twice.
Yep.
Yeah. There you go.
Yep. That was definitely used by one of them right there. Yep. And that's kind of what it does. I mean, it'll pierce the capping and you can get the honey out of it. But when you go, and if you can actually capture the cappings, then when you go to, like, if you're able to, and the law allows you to, and you do that, and you set them out for the bees to rob them, the bees will pull those cappings off. And if you put something underneath of it that can catch it, maybe like a tarp or something like that, now you can catch those cappings. So that's something to think about too. Ricky, you brought up a good point there. I had never actually tried that. I never actually did it as soon as we pulled it off. Usually it sat in our garage for maybe a day. Yeah. Sometimes 2 days, depending on.
Yeah, but the garage is always hot, and we're like,
yeah, but
I mean, it's like stupid hot in there.
I mean, it's not hot like it'd be inside of
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it all depends if at night it cools down, right? And then it takes that honey a while to heat back up. It really does. So I found that I did some that I had pulled off and left sitting in my laundry room that's kind of concrete, and I went to do the thing, and it's like it wouldn't even slice the cappings off of it. It's like it really had to work to get them cappings off. And
really?
It really made a mess. But now the honey that come right off the hive that was hot, or the sun was on those combs, it really made a big difference.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it actually works better on fatter frames.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the fatter the better, probably.
Yeah.
That's a true statement. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You gotta also think about your moisture content in your honey, because that affects the flow
Mm-hmm.
whenever you cap it.
I don't know what Mark Miller says. Do you all have a screw under it? I don't know if he's talking about the uncapper or
Yeah, Mark Miller, can you clarify? You said, do you all have the screw under it? Is that what you're talking about, the where the wax cappings drop into, and it's basically a
Copper.
no, it's the
Extruder?
cappings extruder.
Yeah.
If you're asking about that, no, I didn't buy that. I really thought about it last year, but it was going to be, I think, around $13,000 if I bought the automatic uncapper with the screw. And I was believe it or not, I know I was going to start laughing and poking. I didn't want to go over a certain budget here. There is a method to my thought
2
process.
million? About 2 million?
Yes,
Yeah.
that was it.
Yeah.
It is on the wish list for next year.
I've been thinking about getting into the cattle business, JW. Got any pointers?
Yeah. Don't do it.
If I wanted to make 5 million in the cattle business, how much money would I have to start with?
About 15 million.
Never mind then. I'll just keep buying them and eating them.
No, it's
How much is
especially the purebred business. Unless you're in the clique, why? Good luck.
Yeah.
so? Clay, are you talking about the Simple Harmony Farms one or the license one that we got? The Simple Harmony Farms one, I think, is
$435.
like
Yeah.
$435.
You might-
We got ours at Nobby, and what do we pay for it at Nobby?
For what?
The uncapper.
Less than what it's listed now.
Yeah. I told.
That is the
That's
one.
the one we
That is
got.
the one I have right there. It has the tank under it.
Yeah.
So if I wanted the first picture that Lee had pulled up, if you look, this one has a tank. It has the automatic setup is exactly the same as what's on the second one he's pulling up right now. But if you look at the frame, it's a framework, and it has that table on there that actually tilts down toward that wax extruder. I think depending on which one you buy, they have 3 different models of that wax extruder. They'll run anywhere from a few thousand up to maybe 5,000 or 6,000 for that, just for that piece alone. Yeah, you can. Yeah, I think they've got 3. So you can choose which one you want to go under there. That was a lot more money, and I didn't feel like right now at this time for us that was money well spent.
Yeah.
So if I'd have spent an extra $6,000 for that whole setup, I didn't feel like that was money well spent for what I needed to do. So this is what I stuck with for now.
You actually the one you got is new.
That's correct. Yes, I bought it brand new.
It was the one that was there on the floor at Nobby.
I looked at Dwayne had one over there that I looked at Dogwood.
Yeah,
Yep.
I
That's it.
couldn't. He didn't have a $1 down, $1 a year
that's
finance
so.
programs for me. So
That's who I bought it from. I went ahead and bought it from Dwayne at Dogwood Ridge.
Yeah.
Better Bee gets them, and then
Sure.
Dwayne does too. I chose, and I have nothing against Better Bee. They have great products and all that stuff. I wanted to go with the smaller guy.
Well, and he's somewhat local. He's right in Illinois. Isn't
Yeah,
he?
he's probably not too terribly far from you, JW.
About 60 mile.
Yeah. So
He did.
what?
He's
Hour-
in Indiana though. He's
hour
in
fifty.
Indiana.
Okay, Indiana.
Oh,
Okay,
is it
that's right.
Indiana? Oh,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
I
That's right.
forgot. Yeah.
His people that know those folks, do you know anybody that was on the chat that happened to know Dwayne Davis, Miss Kimberly, his wife's not good at all.
Yeah, she
So
wasn't
keep her-
doing. I think she
Keep her
was
in your
sick
thoughts
back
and
in
prayers.
January.
Is she still ill right now, JW?
She's worse than what she was at Nobby, even quite a
Okay.
bit, quite a lot. Yeah.
Well, definitely some prayers to him and his
Yeah.
family.
Yeah. Anybody that happen to know them or where you know them or not, they're fine folks, and
Yeah,
they could use a prayer or two because
that's right. Yeah,
She's
yeah. I just spoke with Dwayne this morning. As a matter of fact, I had a couple questions for him, and he was gracious enough to help out for sure.
You're lucky to even catch him in there. He's been gone a lot. She's been daily treatments, and he brought his son in. His son's been helping him, and one of his employees there in the shop because Dwayne hadn't been able to be there a lot. She's in pretty poor shape.
Okay. Yeah.
So anybody that wants to see that uncapper, I went and grabbed a frame of honey. So I can get this.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Hope you don't run it on you over on your in your living room floor.
There you go.
Yeah.
So let's see if we can get that. It's not a fat frame, but it's a little bit.
That should get it done.
That'll get done. That's as easy it is right there.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the honey moving out of it already.
Oh yeah.
But what you folks are saying.
Oh, you're brave doing that over your living room carpet.
No, it's not a carpet. It's not carpet.
It's a vinyl.
Vinyl floor.
Oh,
He's got a tub under it to catch it.
Yeah, I got a tub under it.
He's prepared.
you're still asking for trouble.
So Ricky, what we would do after we would run it through there, and we used to have the kids do that after we run it through there a couple times. That would go from that process in the tank to the next one, and somebody else would pick it up before they would go into the extractor. And if any of them didn't quite catch those cappings all the way, we'd use one of those little bitty hand spike rollers and just roll over a couple spots in there, and then it would go straight into the extractor from there. So it was a little bit more of a process, but it works really well, and it's really cost effective, I think, for most people.
Yeah, for a backyard beekeeper, I think it is definitely the way to go. And I'm happy that I bought it this year. It's been great to have. It's made my life way easier. Yep, absolutely, right there.
That's it.
If the garage wasn't such a sticky mess,
Now let me ask you guys this: would they not be? You couldn't hardly use just a regular strainer or something. What you're saying is with the cappings and all, and knock a lot of cappings loose where they'd plug a strainer real quickly. Is that correct?
Yeah. So do you know, I'm sure Lee can pull one up. If not, I can go grab one out of there. If you can get them on Amazon, it's like a bucket strainer. The bottom strainer it looks like a little bowl, and it's really fine, but there's a stainless steel insert that goes in the top. I've seen it before offered on, may have it, I don't recall, but on beekeeping websites. So it's a 2-part strainer. The top one is a very coarse screen, and the bottom one is really fine, kind of like a fine window screen, basically. And it's adjustable. You can pull it in or out. There's a couple of ears. Yeah, some ears that kind of pull in and out, and you can set it over a larger bucket or maybe even a small one. But I've got 4 or 5, so I would start with straining into a bucket, and I would have 5 or 6 buckets going at once. And then if it got to the point where it got too clogged up and we couldn't get it, I'd run a few of them outside and I'd wash them out. That's it right there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. I've got 5 of them, and you need them all if you got very many.
Yeah, you just kind of rotate the buckets as they fill up, as the strainer fills.
So this works, and it's a very cost-effective way to do it. Again,
you're just
depending on if you don't have as much time to do it, then there's quicker methods, but you'll pay up obviously for that. We used that for like 4 years. And like I said, last year I ran 2,500 pounds that way. And after that, I said, I'm not doing this again. We're making a change. And I just needed to figure out what it was. And that's what I landed on. And so far I'm pretty happy with what I've set up out there. It seems to be working well, but I'm using more of with the clarifier and also going into those 55-gallon drums, I'm using more of a settling method is what I'm doing. I'm not straining every bit that goes through there. So
now you talking about using that double strainer. Let's see, pull that back up. I started out with them, but right at $40 a pop, you buying multiple of them, that adds up pretty quick.
Yeah.
They might be a little bit cheaper on Amazon.
Yeah, that's what Honeybee likes.
Yeah.
What I started using, I bought those through Daydan here too. But what I use now is just a plastic bucket strainer. It's got a lip around it that fits right on your bucket.
Well, we use
for
those
$10,
also.
I can buy a bunch of them. And
Yeah,
the
well, I'm
easiest
bad.
way
I
I
use
found to
all three
clean
of
them out, I'll take them to the water hose and just cold water rinse them out backwards.
That's what we
And
did
I mean,
too.
just a few seconds, they're clean.
Yeah, we were doing that too. I've probably got some 200 and 400 micron those bucket
We have
things
2,
in there,
4, and 6.
and I would run them through that as well. So I would really try to make my honey look very clean and presentable in the bottle, especially lighter honey. So you're looking more for presentation on that when you're doing that, because those other strainers are going to do just a fine job of pulling the particles out that need to be pulled out.
Yeah. Now that's the 400 micron. I have those, but I also have the 200 micron too.
Yeah.
And I mean, depending on how many wax cappings got mixed in with it, what I would do every now and then, I would run it through that metal strainer. That way it's going through 1,000 micron down to 500, and then in that 400. In the plastic 400 and 200s, they wouldn't hardly get clogged at all because they were already filtered or strained by the metal one.
You're basically catching it as it goes down through the stages almost.
Yeah, because if you try to take it straight out of your extractor through like a 200 micron strainer, it's going to clog up pretty quick.
Oh,
What
yeah.
are you extracting with, Lee? What are you extracting with?
I have a 20 frame date ant.
Okay. No, I meant for your uncapping. I'm sorry, I said extractor. I meant your uncapper.
Uncapper is the Lyson tabletop steam uncapper.
Okay.
Here, Lee, I just sent you some pictures of when we were using the Simple Harmony Farms thing.
So Lee, tell us about the method that you're using. What do you like about it? What do you not like about it?
Yes.
The price on this little thing went up almost double, but I find the little steam uncapper, it uncaps it good as long as your frames are drawn out fat.
Okay.
Now, if you starting out with 10 frames in your super, they're not going to be built out past the sidewalls, the rails, and you'll have to take that little spike roller and unroll just about everything. Once your frames are drawn out and you take a frame out and run in 9 frames and you have them spaced wide, that little steam uncapper, I mean, it just cuts them nice and clean for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously you want to do that with the uncapping stuff that we're using too. A really narrow frame is just not going to work well.
Yeah.
But like you said, once the frames get fat, if you subtract 1 frame out of your honey super, that's where you're going to get that. First year can be a little bit trickier depending on how eager and how strong the honey flow was. But you're 100% right.
Tom, are you guys running 7 frames in your supers and your 8 frame stuff? You cut them down. Are you spacing them to 7 for your honey?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we'll do 7. Yeah, I want to get those
space
frames.
has to be really tight to make that work out correct. If the comb's not been drawn out already, is that not correct?
Yeah, sometimes what I'll do is I'll start off with 8 frames inside there. When they start drawing them out, they've got it partially drawn. I'll pop it out and then I'll space them from there.
Smart move. Yep.
Then I can already have maybe a partially drawn frame. So it makes it much easier than if I throw it back in something or put it in another box. The bees are more likely to want to draw on it if it already has some wax comb pushed out on it, even if it's just a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
I extracted about 800 pounds last week by myself with a knife and them 5
That's a
strainers.
lot of work.
Yeah, it is, especially by yourself.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, that's me generally. I mean, Renee, she'll help me bottle some honey and she'll help me label it, but she don't get out there and really mess with the bees, and she's not going to help me extract because bees are flying around trying to get in. She's went to a Beeyard and helped me one time, and as soon as she stepped out of the truck, she got hit like 3 or 4 times, and that was her first time and her last time.
Oh boy!
I think we only actually have a handful of bees in the garage this time.
David said he's got a short on the Simple Harmony
Mhm.
arms uncapper. I've not seen it.
Yeah, if anybody's interested in looking at it, definitely watch that video. I mean, it's not a bad tool to have. For me, it wasn't a bad purchase, not at all. It was a stepping stone. Again, there was there's downfalls to anything that you're going to use. I don't care what it is.
Melissa, you said you sent a picture or a video?
So I sent you 3 pictures in the Dropbox.
Okay.
I was going to tell you, Tom, you said a while ago you need to build, and I'll furnish you a building. You just bring all your stuff out here and put it in.
Hey, I'll tell you what, if you were closer, I'd probably take you up on that. I would. You'd have free use of it if I had a spot to put it. That would be our arrangement, and I would take you up on that for sure.
We actually have one yard that my cousin owns. It was my uncle's, that we could put something on, like a honey house there, whatnot. There is electric and water there. There's not a house there though, and we're the only ones that visit that yard. Like, how secure do we really want all that expensive equipment somewhere that somebody's not going to be there at least on, every other day?
Yeah.
Well, I'll even furnish a nightlight for you,
That'd be all right.
So this is the tank that we had. You can see the Simple Harmony Farms, the young capper there in the corner. We had a friend of ours kind of fabricate this tank that we had purchased, and he put in the metal piece, the divider, and then so Tom could mount that Simple Harmony Farms uncapper right there.
Yeah.
And he had it measured so that we could hang frames on either side. And we actually got that tank off of Facebook Marketplace.
Yep.
It was actually a pharmaceutical tank that we repurposed and did that with. I think we paid $100 for it, something like that.
I think I paid $150.
Yeah. And then that's me and our son using that roller thing that Tom was talking about, the spiky roller thing, to get the little spots that maybe the young capper didn't reach.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that poor kid, did child labor. They can't even afford shoes.
I know, can't afford shoes.
I guarantee I worked them boys.
Well, that isn't awful. I'm going to report you into the NAA.
He couldn't afford shoes because he had to buy those dirt bikes in the background.
Yeah, you see those dirt bikes in the back, right? Those things ain't cheap.
That's child labor. I'm telling you, that's illegal.
Is it
Immoral cattle on your farm. You can't afford to feed them all in cats.
Hey, Tom, that uncapper you have, is that 110 or 220?
So that was,
yes, that's 220.
There was a couple of things though about that uncapper. Number one, the plug, because it's from a different country, the plug is not the right plug.
Well, no.
So we had to buy.
20s, there's different ones in this country also, so it wouldn't.
Yeah,
that's no big deal.
It's not completely unstandard, but it's a 20 amp 220 plug is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think it draws 16 amps. When I was reading in the book, because I needed to know that, what I did is because I don't have any of those plugs, I do have a couple of 220 outlets in my garage. One's for my air compressor, one's for my welder. And what I did do is I made a 12-foot whip to plug into where my welder goes, and then I made the adapter that goes into the new uncapper itself. So that actually worked out really good. At some point, I may change it up to where it actually I have electric drop in from the ceiling, so that way you don't have any cords in the floor. Yeah,
240.
So it actually that unit has 2 motors. It has one that drives the chain, one that causes the blades to oscillate back and forth or vibrate back and forth, side to side. And then on the front of it, which you can barely see, there's a couple of black hoses that come down the side and they go to the back side of the machine there, because those knives are heated. So there's actually a closed system on there that heats those knives that are on there. And I think when I was reading it, it uses a propylene glycol. So again, the system is a closed system, but you can heat it. You can adjust it to whatever temp you want. I actually set the temperature at between 160 and 170. And that was what I was suggested to use. If you're running constant through it, because as it goes through there, the blades will cool off slightly with the honey itself. Yep. 149 to 203. I think I set it at 160 to start, and then I moved it up to 170 because I was trying to run fairly quickly with it.
And according to our son, that wax stays hot for a long time.
We had a pile of wax in the back of it from I don't know how many frames we had ran through it already. And I told him, I said, hey, I said, knock that wax down inside there. I said, I don't want it staying built up underneath that chain uncapper and start to cause a jam. So he got in there and we shut the machine down and started digging in it. He said, ow. And I thought maybe first, and I kept it pretty clean of bees. I thought maybe a bee stung him or something. I'm like, you get stung? He said, no. He goes, it's hot. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, you didn't touch the knife, did you? And he said, no. He said, the wax is hot. And I'm like, it is? And I'm like, holy cow, I didn't realize. So it was actually superheating that wax. None of it was actually melting. Yeah, oscillator motor, the feeder motor, and then the heater power. So again, the whole system, at this point, I don't have a whole lot of time in it, a handful of hours. It seems to work well. If I had JW money, I'd have bought the whole line. That's all I know.
That's the reason I don't have one.
Good comeback, JW. So it's all those little tips and tricks that we like to share with each other. And that's the same thing I like to do, is ask a lot of questions to somebody before I drop some coin on anything. I'm like, I want to know this is something that I really want, because again, this is not really equipment that you can go put your hands on and try it for a season. No strings attached. It just doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Well, and part of the reason for us purchasing it also was because that child labor that you see in our pictures, they turn 18 next week. So I don't know how much more child labor we're going to get out of them here in the next couple
they'll
of
be
years.
striking for longer hours and lower wages, what they'll be doing. Yeah.
So I don't know how much more child labor we're going to be able to get out of them here over the next couple of years. So it may be just the Tom and Melissa extraction show.
Well, I would say Tom and Melissa, but if Lee pull that picture back up again, we all know she'd probably end up sitting down the job, or I don't know. If we look at the picture, look more like laying down the job.
Well, that's what I was noticing. This one here, she's sitting down on the job. This one here, she's almost laying down.
I know. I feel like next she's gonna be putting a couch in the Amazon cart.
Yep.
I don't know.
Most of the posts I see, they're sitting someplace eating.
I agree with you, JW. You got them both.
I don't know how he stays so skinny, but that's okay. Oh, it's all right.
It's all that child labor, JW. They don't have to work,
Hey, there you go.
Yes, don't have nobody. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up right there. Appreciate everybody for being on the chat tonight. It's been great. Wayne was awesome to have on here, and all you guys over here in the chat, the questions. I'm always learning something when I get on here, and you guys are absolutely awesome. So until next Thursday, we'll see you then.
Have a
Bye,
good
everybody.
Have a good one.